Welcome back to The Edge. Hey, Google, we got 5 stories for you today. Google has announced a new tool for podcasters. They also announced new quality raters guidelines. Over 4 million sites may have a vulnerability exploit for WP Bakery. Google also announced some AI search updates, and podcasting is playing a greater role in the spoken word consumption today on The Edge.
From the Edge of the Web studios, here's what we're looking at this week.
Five news stories. That's what we're going to do today. Fantastic, right, Jacob?
Fantastic.
You got to be on the stick, man.
You didn't say my name.
Well, I'm looking at you. Actually, I should be looking at them, right? There you go.
I'm sorry. Here we go. I'm ready.
Now, this absolutely entertains the podcast audience, right?
They have no idea what's going on.
No idea what's going on. Welcome to the Site Strategics Digital Marketing News Desk of Edge of the Web. This is the news segment that we always roll out each and every week with our guest. It's a bonus news podcast for episode 372. And I'm your host, Aaron Sparks of Site Strategics. Joining me this week to get his take on all things newsworthy in the digital marketing space is the Benjamin Shapiro, host of the MarTech and Voices of Search podcast. Benjamin, how are you doing today?
I'm great. Excited to be on the show.
He's back with us, and he was in the studio last time, but we were on his show a while back. It wasn't really in the studio. I mean, he was here.
It looked the same to me.
It really does.
I definitely feel like I'm playing a road game here. My face is on the TV in the background. I'm feeling a little inadequate with my USB mic plugged into my laptop, having had you on my podcast.
Come on.
I feel like I need to go buy some gear.
Well, you know what? We happen to be an affiliate for some gear, so we can actually sell those to you directly. Just kidding.
I see.
Just kidding. All right. Well, it was great to be on your show. We really appreciated the time and the in-depth interview that you provided. So if we want to let our users know, our listeners know, to go on over there and check out Benjamin's podcast. We talked about a lot of content curation from podcasts for what we do on the Edge itself. But you know what? That was that show. This is your show. So first and foremost, we want to get your take on some news of the day. So you ready to go?
Fire away.
All right. So first articles from Search Engine Journal from Roger Monti, and he's a fantastic author over there. Google announced podcast managers, why podcasts need this new and improved tool. Google announced a service that helps podcasters gain more listeners from Google and get listener analytics data. Now, check this stuff out. Is that literally we're dealing with something in a whole another space regarding podcasting. We've never had analytics on search as it applies to finding our podcast on Google Index. We've had kind of that secondary space of where our sites are actually getting pulled up into search, but this is literally giving us an idea of where our podcasts are actually getting searched from and played. So have you had a chance to have a look at the new improved Google Podcast Analytics?
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. I still think Google is the third player in this space, and
Sure.
they're kind of dipping their toe in the water a little bit more and trying to take advantage of the content and SEO play here.
Yep.
But I just think that the major players in the space are still going to be Apple and Spotify first, and then Google next. It's all about discovery within the app stores today,
Right.
Because that's where people are listening to the content.
No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. But to be able to see what people are searching for that content, Apple's just not provided that regularly at all. We can get consumption, but we just can't see the honest facts of what people are searching for. At least Google's got that game covered, and this seems very much like a spillover from Google Search Console. These type of tools that they have already for web SEO. So you're absolutely right. But they're dialing this in, and I think they're fastly approaching something that's even more valuable for the advertisers of podcasts as well, to be able to see not only the downloads, the real estates, but the effective marketplace that their advertising dollars are going to. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that there's a larger problem in the podcast space, which is around attribution, because most of the actual conversions happen in these walled gardens. Somebody subscribes in Spotify or in Apple iTunes or whatever the podcatcher du jour is. And the person that's marketing the podcast never understands what drives a conversion. Now we're getting a little bit of data to understand what's pushing someone to your front door, but you still can't really get down to the individual per subscription basis. So yes, this is useful for marketers, useful for podcasters. Interesting to see how many, clicks per month we're getting for the Voices of Search podcast, what the click-through rate is. But I still can't compare that to how that traffic is converting to any of the other marketing activities I'm doing. So it's all still kind of like, lick your finger, put it in the wind, and feel where the breeze is coming from in terms of effective digital marketing to podcasts.
I would agree with that. It's marginal, but I mean, we've been dying for metrics and performance measurements on all of our podcast platforms, and I'll take anything that Google can give us, all things considered. But you know what? Let's shift over to Insider Radio. They had a great article, a pretty lengthy article regarding a recent study from Insider Radio. Podcasts are playing a greater role in the spoken word audio consumption. This is a second annual spoken word audio report, which Edison Research actually produced with NPR. It shows spoken word listeners are hungry for content, and as a group, they average 2 hours per day listening to non-music audio content. Yet how that listening is actually being divvied up is actually changing, especially as podcasts are becoming more and more mainstream. I would like to actually put that to bed. I think podcasts are mainstream. I mean, I could be biased here, but the percentages are certainly showing out there. It's a pretty deep report here, but all things considered, podcasts now make up 19% in 2020 of the spoken word consumption. And in that respect, we have the highest amount ever in this particular report. But what do you think about the audio, the spoken word consumption as opposed to podcasting channels explicitly? What do you see as the difference in that space from a market standpoint, Ben?
Two takeaways.
Yep.
One, the categorization they have is AM, FM radio as one category, which in 2020 is 55% of the spoken word. Podcasts are 19%, and 6% is other. And I think that, in my household, that is 26% of listening to your wife tell you what you should be doing. And, that is actually in my household closer to like 75% of the spoken word audio consumption.
If you know what's right for you, right?
I don't really know what that other category is if it's not, digital content, which I'm assuming is the podcast bucket, and AM, FM radio, where people are listening to other content. So I thought that the segmentation was a little funny. Jokes aside, I think that this is a trend that we've seen before. And, we're following the streaming video trend where we saw terrestrial television, cable television, and then all of a sudden streaming is coming along and people are doing more streaming audio or streaming video consumption than they are watching regular TV. And so now we're just seeing people become more comfortable with different devices, consuming media in different places. And so I think that this is more of a general content trend than it is specifically with device types. Now, in terms of audio picking up, I think that's good news for us podcasters. I think people are trying to get educated. I think it potentially impacts the music industry negatively. There is something else to be monetized. And so that's why you're seeing the big boys like Spotify and Apple spending a little bit more time, Google as well, thinking about the industry that, we're working in.
No, that's a great take. They categorize the top 10 spoken word audio topics and 62% news and information. So we're also in the political year of all political years, and there's so much of an evolution of those pundits that have gone to podcasting, as well as news organizations that have also expanded their channel breadth into podcasting. So it's not that the users are actually consuming more of something. The market has shifted and moved toward where those users are as well, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting to me that news and information is a category, but I don't see business on here.
Nope.
And when you think about some of the video broadcasting, I think business would probably be broken out.
Yeah, yeah.
And that actually might make the music category. So people listening to spoken word content about music being, hugely popular.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was a little surprising. I think that all the entertainment stuff is really important. Sports as well. I'm a big sports podcast fan.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought that the topics were interesting. I was surprised that business wasn't broken out in that chart.
Yeah, it's all kind of lumped together there. Well, oddly enough, they actually did pull out mystery and theater, and the true crime podcasts have just exploded, and that's sucking all the air out of the room. I tell you what, my daughter got me addicted to some of these true crime. There's actually a podcast here out of Indianapolis, Crime Junkies, that has just taken the airwaves by storm in this space. So I think what we're looking at is also a little bit further. If you take a perspective back to when cable actually started to arrive on the scene and all the fractional channels, right? We now have such a fractionalized level of consumption that you're going to see more and more categories all over the place. But we're now controlling exactly what we want from a media consumption, and we have the platform, we have the mobile platform, but we can control exactly what we're wanting to listen to. And on top of that, we also have experienced such a terrible year from the COVID side of things. Literally, there's so many DIYs and recipes and spoken word type of consumption now that everything's changed. The entire year's changed the game. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there's another factor to this, is that we're moving away from radio, which is, in real time, into an on-demand culture.
Yeah.
And so that really changes the type of content that people are consuming. I'll give you an example. Yesterday, I'm sitting around watching the football games, and I have to go and put my son down to sleep. He's 7 months old. So I pop my earbuds in, and it used to be I'd turn on the radio and listen to the play-by-play of the game, and now I'm listening to a podcast. And so I'm listening to prognosticators talking about what they think is going to happen to the games while they're being played, because I'm listening to, my feed, which is on demand, which inherently is not in real time. So I think the type of content that we're actually going to be consuming is different. Formats of shows are going to change. And I'm interested to see what will happen. Will there be a shift towards understanding what's in real time, or in the podcast feeds going to be able to see, a blend of pre-recorded content and something that's being published live. I think that's kind of the future of the medium.
Absolutely. Very good take. All right. Shifting gears into some of our SEO news from the SEM Post by Jennifer Slegg, great author, great writer on a regular basis. And we cover her. We have been covering her for years. The new quality rater guidelines are out, and the update adds emphasis on needs met. Now, Google has actually released a brand new quality rater guideline, coming close to a year after the last one was released in 2019, December of 2019. The update doesn't have some of the sweeping updates and changes that we've seen in previous updates. However, they actually do know, and this is what's really exciting. They have a change log. They actually have a log of different changes that they've had over time with the guidelines, and that was what so many people were actually struggling with. So many thought leaders in our space just trying to compare what's changed from one version to another version. They actually have a log so we can actually see what has actually happened in the last 2 years. Google actually has put more of an emphasis on needs met this time, and what that really means is literally they haven't made any changes in the EAT, the Expertise, Authority, and Trust. Although it did receive an extensive update previously in 2019, the fact that there are no changes made to EAT, that means that they have kind of established a focus, because they actually changed a lot from earlier updates into 2019. But the needs met is an actual signal that the SEOs should actually be paying attention to. Whether or not, basically, it's a focus on landing page maintenance, but it's also content, very, very focused on content relationship to the consumer who's looking for the content. So if you're a DIY company, or if you're providing some sort of insight into some solutions, you should also be writing the content that's oriented oriented towards giving that solution, giving that these nuggets of information to that consumer. If there's a bait and switch, if there's a you're meeting the user with so many questions SEO wise, but you're not fulfilling the commitment that you're making on the page itself to what the promise was on the SERP, you could actually be losing rankings. So these documents are 167, 170 pages long. So we're not going to get into that incremental depth unless you want to, Benjamin.
Well, no, I don't want to get into the 167 pages or however long the document
Unbelievable.
was.
Yeah.
I do think that, it's interesting to see how Google is communicating more frequently with how the search algorithm works, with what SEOs should expect. It's a little less of a black box than it used to be. And honestly, I commend them for not only talking about, these changes, but also when they make a mistake. Google's had some bugs recently, and they've been upfront about when they happened and when they're resolving them. So kudos to Google. Kudos to Google for
say that 10 times
a little
fast.
bit more, for being a little bit more upfront
Absolutely.
with how search actually works.
No, yeah, you're absolutely right. We talked to the three heads of state there in the last couple of months with John Mueller, Gary Eash, and Martin Splitt. They're all, they've got recruited from all their different walks of life to be able to communicate what's happening with regularity, and they're getting more and more transparent. So you're absolutely right. There's much more information out there. However, things are shifting. Things are shifting in rank. Things are shifting in authority. There's no magic formula that is SEO. It never really was. But now that's much more of a trust factor that's happening across the board. And sites that are trying to spin or trying to play the game are summarily getting dismissed off of Google.
Yeah, my takeaway here is that, long form content is obviously important, and having great, well thought out pieces of content has its time and its place. But Google's getting better at understanding content at the paragraph and at the sentence level.
Yes.
And so, if you can answer a question quickly and efficiently, you should be breaking that content, make it easier for Google to consume. And, their quality ratings is looking at that as well. They're just able to, not look at the domain, at the individual page, but now at the micro pieces of content within your larger body of text.
And what a beautiful segue that was to our next article over at Search Engine Journal. It's like you do this for a regular profession. I don't know. It's amazing.
It's fun being on the other side. I don't have to do most of the talking.
From Roger Monti, Google announced some AI search updates, and they actually put together an analysis of this. And this is really, really important, guys, because Google announced a number of different changes. One of the most important updates to its algorithm is they are actually now indexing passages, not just pages. Now, what does that mean? An important change may actually be that the most visible impact to Google search result pages, the SERPs, they're actually now indexing passages of content, not just that full page. And what that means is literally that's probably going to affect around 7 to 10% of search results collectively. So what that is they're actually looking at these. We've talked about it before: the entities, the relationships, the context of content, not just a page and its dimensions of long form. They're actually now tearing this apart and using more and more useful features out of that content and how that content relates to each other. So this is not a scenario in which that's changing the indexing. It's actually changing the rankings. And Barry Schwartz, Lily Ray, were all over it over the weekend. You're talking about what this announcement really means. We certainly recommend everybody going over to the different analysis pieces that are out there. The point is they're making breakthroughs in ranking and are actually able not to just pull in content, but make sense out of the entities inside the content. So it's not string of characters anymore. It's not a phrase mapping. Should never be focused on how often you're repeating a particular phrase or what have you. It's really about how useful this content is in relation to itself on the page. And if you think about the QRG that we just talked about, whenever they're looking at right? The needs met. If you're actually optimizing a page, you're positing a question and then giving a solution further down the page, you better believe that relationship of content's going to be a much stronger ranking factor than any type of bait and switch type of content that's out there. All right, there's my rant. Final thoughts on that, Benjamin?
Yeah, I think that there's your featured snippets and there's all sorts of other schema type things that you've been doing to sort of tokenize content and feed it to Google. They're just getting a little better at doing it themselves. And so, my question is, what's going to happen as we move forward? How much of that sort of micro content do you need to categorize and highlight to Google, or will they just be able to do it themselves? Will life get a little easier, and will we start focusing more on content optimization as opposed to the sort of technical feeding the content to Google?
Yeah, well, with 400 different types of schema, we would certainly appreciate a little bit different level of granularity. I mean, it's great to be able to break it down, but it almost feels like you're programming the machine,
Yeah. I'll add that I don't know if I 100% believe the keyword stuffing isn't really going to matter and all the page level, no, they're just Google's going to understand each sentence in a vacuum. I don't buy it yet until I see it. So
right.
I'm still using my SEO optimization tools and trying to figure out what keywords I need to put in and making sure that I have the right number of them before I just say, no, I have to write a couple great sentences at the bottom that are answers to the question.
Google should know what we're really intending, right? We shouldn't even have to write it. Speaking of optimization tools, what a fantastic additional segue. Let's talk about our sponsor, AHREFS, a fantastic continued sponsor
they're my sponsor too.
I know. Fantastic continued sponsor for the Edge. They make the software makes competitive analysis very, very easy and understands exactly how your competitors are getting your traffic. So literally use the tools to be able to create your own strategy that you can see the pages and content and the keywords of your competitors, and you can do it better than they can with the audit tools and the optimization tools that they've got there. So if you're not getting significant search traffic, Ahrefs tools also give you some great topics to actually create topic research. Fantastic. In fact, we use them today on the show, all things considered. So if you like what you're getting traffic-wise, you can always isolate better and better link building tools, and also you can see what kind of spam you're getting from the internets and be able to purge that out of the system as well. So go check out. Go ahead.
Can I add on your Ahrefs ad?
Go for it. I don't think they'd mind.
No, hey, I use Ahrefs. I'm a customer, and they've been a sponsor of the Martech and the Voices of Search podcast. But we used Ahrefs, and it significantly increased our podcast downloads because we started looking at the domain rank of the potential speakers along with their social followings and started putting together a social syndication score, and Ahrefs was a big part of that, and understanding the reputation of the links that you might be getting by having speakers ended up helping us understand who was going to be the most valuable guest. It's one of the ways that we got in touch with you as we were looking around for SEO podcasts and saw who had the best domain ranks, and there was Aaron Sparks.
Beautiful. Oh my gosh.
Ahrefs making podcast magic happen as well.
See, they just connect. Oh my gosh. This is awesome. All right. So yeah, we certainly recommend you go try them out. They have a 7 days for $7 subscription, so you can try out the entire tool set uncrippled. And it is one of the, if not one of the best link analysis platforms on the planet right now. We certainly give them kudos for what they're doing on a daily basis to increase the value there. All right. So that said, let's go into our last article here. I appreciate the indulgence of our listeners. This one we really wanted to get across to you here. This is some web news, and we're trying to kind of put together a little bit more alert system on when things actually come across that we want you to be aware of. From WordFence, I should say, they have an article out here. There's a vulnerability that exposes over 4 million sites using WP Bakery. Now, if you don't know what WP Bakery is, maybe that's That's great. But for so many different developers out there, it's a great page layout system. And they have actually been tracking a threat on this vulnerability since July 27th. And as a plugin installed by over 4.3 million sites, so there's a flaw made, and it's actually made it possible for authenticated attackers with contributor level or above permissions to inject malicious JavaScript in the post itself. So they have to be authenticated, but there's so many forums and so many sites that actually provide authentication to members without really vetting out that particular member, that if you're not watching those users come onto the system, you could very well be subject to that threat. So they tracked it from the 27th on, and there's been a number of patches. They actually worked with WP Bakery very closely to get some feedback on this, and there are new patches have been over the course of events here, several different patches, and the newest version is 6.4.1, so check your WP plugin settings and make sure that you have 4.1 inside your software. If not, if you don't know how to check it, get with your web developer. They'll be able to check that for you, but you do not want to have this type of exploit happening. And unfortunately, it was made that way, and they've suitably patched it, but you gotta watch what's coming at you online, and you certainly want to keep all of your plugins up to date. Thoughts about that? I know you're on Squarespace, so you don't have to worry about that, do you?
Yeah, not for long actually. We're migrating the Martech Pod website over to a new site with more functionality that's going to be on WordPress, and this type of stuff makes me want to hug my developer and then get under the covers and put my head into the pillows, because I'm just terrified and have no idea how to protect against all the sort of malware that could be infecting your site. Terrifying.
You got to keep your plugins up to date, and on top of that, continually audit the plugins that you have. And there's so many sites out there that have inherited plugins for the longest time. They don't know where it came from or what have you whenever they develop the website. Got to keep it mean and clean and lean in today's space.
I'm gonna jump in real quick.
Yeah.
What version did you say?
6.4.1.
Okay. I heard the 4.1, and I was scrolling back and forth trying to find it, so I just want to make sure we had that.
Were you checking our sites?
No, but I was no. But I think all I heard was 4.1. All I think I heard was 4.1. So I just want to make sure that it was okay.
6.4.1 is the patch.
That's the good one.
That's the good one.
Cool.
Absolutely. All right. So thanks to our listeners indulging us for 5 articles here. That's it for the Edge News this week. Be sure to check out our full interview with Benjamin Shapiro. Link to this podcast. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, as we're going to be bringing you some diced up and very fine-tuned videos here over the course of the next few weeks. So check that out. In fact, we're going to have some aha moments dialed in for Benjamin Shapiro as well. So from all of us over at the Edge, stay safe, stay well, and do not be a piece of cyber driftwood. We'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.